So, Sam, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah. So, I'm not going to start with the traditional question you probably get is how'd you get your start in the business, this and that. I'm going to one of the greatest movies ever made, Stone Cold. And that was Bosworth's, I think, first movie. He was
Yes.
a linebacker for the Seattle Seahawks. Unfortunately, got hurt. One of the biggest college athletes ever, and the NIL was probably made for him. He would have
Yeah,
made like multi-million dollars if they had that going on
indeed.
these days. Absolutely. But you played his FBI handler, and you were probably the hero of the movie at the end, saving the day. So,
Well, there's
yeah,
a
what
story to
was that
that, actually.
experience like?
Well, first of all, it was the movie that would never end, which was great
Right.
because, I was getting paid, but it also drove us a little bit crazy because, I think we were 20 weeks shooting that movie.
Oh, wow.
And then we came back to LA and did some reshoots. But the end of the movie, I actually came up with. It was a unique experience. The whole thing. We were in Little Rock at that point. What's his face? Clinton's successor, who was the governor, basically gave us free reign of the capital. Um, and we're shooting that last scene in which Lance gets, captured and so forth. And they didn't quite know what to do. And I said, well, why don't we do this scene where, as you've seen it, where, he grabs the gun from the idiot state trooper who's apprehending him. And, as he's about to blow Brian away, he gets shot and boom, and he falls down the stairs. That was stuntman, of course. And
Yeah.
and then the camera sort of tracks around, and we come to me, and I'm, the smoking gun. But the payoff was that I have an earring now
Right.
because I've gotten loose since I've been friends with Brian. So I just pitched that, and they went, "Yeah, okay, let's do that." So I had an earring, and personally for
Right.
years, but I hadn't worn one so much so that the hole had closed up. So they got me a PA. We jumped in a car and went to some mall, and I got my ears pierced, and they put in a stud, and that's the ending of the movie.
Right.
It was like that. It was such an odd thing, and what was his name? Harold something or other. Guy who was from New York, been in the studio, and he was Brian's acting coach.
Okay.
And Harold, I can't remember his name now. But anyway, but he would come to the trailer and he'd say, Brian doesn't want to say all this stuff. Can we chop it down? So okay, so I'd be writing on the back of the minis. I'll say this, I'll say that, and Brian can say, yeah, okay, okay. And that's what we would shoot like that. I mean, it's just crazy, the whole thing. And um, but it was, I don't know, sometimes kind of fun, and people love it. Interestingly, but it was really catch as catch can. Now I can't remember anybody's name right now. Or maybe that's just an ongoing condition. But Brian had this manager who had been a football player, who was
Okay.
also from Queens, in fact.
Okay.
Uh, Gary, you know that picture of him where the two of them are looking at one another? I think, I can't remember. Is this Brian's looking up or Gary's looking up? I can't remember, but
Okay.
that's the inspiration for, oh shit, I'm a little punchy this morning. Um, I can't think of the movie with Cuba Gooding. Um,
Oh, not Jerry
yeah,
Maguire.
yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
Because I can't think of anybody's name right now. Anyway, but the director and the writer of that, he was inspired by that photo of the
Okay.
relationship between Gary, whose last name escapes me, and Brian. And he was a very bright guy, Gary was, and actually became a producer on the film. And he sort of pulled things together. At one point, they had to close it down because Brian and Gary had to fly to Seattle to be checked out by the doctors because he had an insurance policy that was going to pay him $7 million if he had to retire.
Okay.
So they just stopped for a day, and he flew out, and they looked at his shoulders, both of which were fairly well mangled, I guess, and then came back, and he got the settlement for it and finished the movie. Um, And of course, we shot in the South. We were in Little Rock. Excuse me. First, we started in Mobile, and then we were in, in the redneck Riviera, Biloxi. And they actually rented a plane. I mean, a big, like a 727, because it was cheaper to do that and fly everybody from Biloxi to Little Rock, and that's where we finished the movie up. But it was and it went so long, and they had a guy who since passed on, but he was sort of famous for being, I wouldn't say he what's the word I'm looking for? He was supposed to help finish the movie, but they got behind the eight ball apparently financially. But they did manage to finish it. But at one point, I had in my deal, I had a free trip home.
Okay.
At some point, and I said, you know what? Because I was just sitting on my ass. I think by then we were in Little Rock, and Lance and I actually got on a plane and flew to Burbank, and I sat around for a week or so, and I finally felt a little guilty, and I called the production. I said, "You guys need me?" And they were like, yeah, well, yeah. Oh, okay. Why don't you come on back? So I did. Lance drove all night. Okay. Yeah, but I flew.
Yeah, smart.
And then I sat on my ass for another week because, it was like that. That was the way the movie was.
Yeah.
But, it was very lucrative, and I'll say that much. And Billy Forsythe, of course, I knew having done
Raising Arizona
with. And I think you have to ask him on this, but there were some reshoots when he's doing a big motorcycle chase with Brian. And if you look at the movie, there's a lack of continuity.
A little bit,
because sometimes he's coming in and sometimes he's going out of sometimes he's wearing a headband and other not. Oh, well. Craig Baxter, who had been a stuntman and used his father as the gaffer, he took over when they fired the original director who had cast me. So wish I could remember his name, but I'm having trouble this morning remembering. Anyhow, so that was quite the film.
Gary Witchard.
Very good. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Yes, he passed, unfortunately, I think.
Yeah.
Very nice guy.
Yeah, he did like a lot of Brian's movies. The rest. Yeah. So
I would assume so. No, but I think he was from Queens. He played. I think he played football at Hofstra. Something like that. Yeah, it was quarterback.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't know how they. Yeah. But yeah, very good.
Yeah. How was dealing with Brian though overall?
Oh, it was fine. It was his first movie, and Brian was he was beefed up when we started, but because we were shooting during the summer, he lost weight. I mean, and so finally, I don't know, he was like at 250 when we started. And I think by the time we wrapped, he was closer to 200, maybe 210, something like that. You'd have to ask him.
Right.
But I think, then, he would go work out every day and so forth. And of course, I did a movie. Oh God, I can't remember the guy's name, but this guy had played for, I think, 4 years, 2 years in the NFL and 2 years in the Canadian League. Very funny guy. Also a linebacker. And of course, the thing was back in the day, the guys in college, there were no real restrictions on, how much they could juice as opposed to the pros.
Yeah.
And this guy said, oh my God, he goes into rookie camp and all these guys are just built like Adonises, and then the pros show up a week later and they're all beat to shit. But, it doesn't matter because they're so naturally fast and strong that they're making the rookie crop look, like rookies.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, interesting cat. I can't think of his name now. I can't think of anything at the moment, but it was very funny. In fact, he's going to Colorado, I think, and he played in the CFL.
Okay.
Well, I'll think of his name. He played in the CFL for 2 years and NFL for 2 years. He was with San Diego and started with 49ers, and I can't remember his name, but call me later and I'll
it'll come to you. Yeah. At
no
the
doubt.
Time, of course. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The ending of that movie before You Saved the Day was hysterical because like Lance kills I guess at that point he's the governor or would be governor, the whole like Supreme Court of Arkansas.
Right.
Or Mississippi, right. I'm sorry. And it was just like, all right, so who really won the movie?
Yes.
Yeah. But
it's very strange. I haven't seen Lance in a long time, but he was. I won't get it on Lance. I don't know how old he is. Pushing 80, I think.
Yeah, he's got to be up there now.
But he was friends with Mickey Rourke, and Mickey Rourke said, take my bike because
Okay.
motorcycle. So Lance, who was, how do I put this? I don't want to say that he was down on his luck or anything like that, but he was scratching things together.
Yeah.
And he takes the bike down there and he treats it lovingly. And then when they wrap the movie, Mickey Rourke hits him with a bill. So, oh, you mean it's a rental?
Right.
Anyway, you
Yeah.
have to ask Lance about that, but good guy.
Yeah. No, he rebounded afterwards. He got, I think, a TV
Yes.
show on Fox, and he was on the X-Files a little bit. So
Well, he had his own show, yeah, for a
yeah,
while.
Millennium. Yeah. So
Yeah,
he
a
was,
terrific actor.
yeah.
Also from New York,
Yes. Yeah.
from East Harlem of all places.
Yeah.
And he was in the Merchant Marine. And I said, what was that like? And he said, floating bums. So, okay,
Yeah.
I'll always remember that.
Right.
But I think the first big thing he had was Dog Day, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think
Lance
so. Yeah.
replays the cop at the end with that
Yeah.
face. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then, he hooked on with James Cameron for a little bit. So that helped with some
Didn't
things.
hurt.
Yeah.
But no, a terrific actor. And his daughter's name was Alchemy, spelled Alcamy. I just remember that because I think he had a license plate with that,
Oh, wow. Okay.
the vanity plate. Why do I remember that? But I can't remember
Yeah.
Gary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's a name that stands
That's
out. Yeah.
indeed.
You're not going to
Indeed.
forget.
Indeed.
Yeah. Yeah. So you acted with probably three of the greatest TV characters of all time: Tony Soprano, Walter White, and Homer Simpson.
At Homer Simpson.
You know, so we'll kind of start with Homer because you were the first, I guess, true guest star
Yeah.
on The Simpsons, playing Gulliver Dark, and that was a great episode where Homer gets filmed with the belly dancer at the bachelor party, and Marge freaks out because all the pictures everywhere, and then at the end you have the big scene, singing the song with Homer and everything like that. I mean, I know working on the Tracey Ullman Show probably helped you get that role, but was there ever like a opportunity to do more shows, or was there still one?
Well, the Simpsons were just this sort of little interstitial
Right, the
bits
Tracey
that
Ullman
they would
Show.
do on the Tracey Ullman
Right.
Show. And I was on the Tracey Ullman Show, and there was another cartoon which escapes me, the name of which it was sort of more, I wouldn't say adult, but more adult oriented or something, in a sort of Jules Pfeiffer kind of way. And I got assigned to that one. But everybody was doing those things. I mean, basically, they grab you at lunchtime and you do, you go into the sound booth on stage
Yeah.
19 and just lay it down, and that would be the end of it. I mean, I wish I'd done The Simpsons, certainly. And then, you could be filming my baronial estate.
Right.
But so I just did the first one. I remember that it was fun because I got to sing in it.
Right.
And of course, I had done the character on the Tracey Ullman Show.
Yeah.
But, they had, of course, they had Danny and Julie and Hank Azaria. And, oh, come on, Sam. He left the show. Oh.
Yeah, he did.
Anyway.
Was it Herman's Head?
Oh, Hank did, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember a few years later, I had my own series on Fox, and we were all
Yeah.
flying into New York on Regent Air, I think,
Okay.
which was really kind of cool. And Hank, I guess I knew Hank because everybody at Fox was relatively small when we began.
Right.
We all knew. I mean, Christina Applegate was 17 years old, and Eddie I knew from New York and so forth. But I remember flying in with Hank and Christine Ebersole, who I adore.
Right.
And what's his name? God, I'm sorry. I'm just having I'm quite punchy this morning.
That's okay.
Matt Frewer.
Oh yeah.
And the three of us, and they would on the plane. They'd set you up in these little pods, and they'd serve you dinner and so forth. It was really cool. This little cute and adorable brunette named Jennifer Aniston was on the plane. She was on a show called The Edge.
Okay.
With my friend Wayne Knight and Julie Brown, not downtown.
Okay. Right.
Brown,
yeah. The other Julie Brown.
Who I worked with that Julie Brown later.
Okay.
She did a very funny sketch comedy series, which the episode I did was spoofing Wayne Bobbitt, if you remember him.
Oh yeah.
Why can't I remember that name? Oh well. Such is
Yeah.
life.
Right.
But no, Simpsons was like, oh, so we just do it and we knock it off and we wouldn't think twice about it,
Yeah.
of course. You know, that occasioned a huge lawsuit and so forth, which, you know, amazingly, Tracey lost. It was
Yeah.
remarkable because she was supposed to get a piece of whatever came out of the show.
Right.
And it didn't happen. And, you know, I don't want to go on record, but who knows what happened.
Yeah.
I do know that Jim Brooks was allowed to be deposed on tape because he was prepping for Say Anything. I think, was that the movie he did? Or I'll Do Anything? The one with Julie Kavner was in. Anyway.
Yeah. Say anything. Yeah.
And Fox had said, well, I you know, here I go getting myself in trouble.
Right.
Who cares? But Fox had said to Jim, he said, make the deal with her because they're going to give her damages as well as, you know, what she's owed. And okay. And Tracey lost, which was remarkable. I mean, anyhow, go figure. But so no, that was just, you know, that was just the luck of the draw. And of course, Danny's done quite well. I remember doing a series about 7 years ago, also at Fox, and the outside of the studio, or the, you know, I can't remember what number was 15 at Fox, was painted in all these Simpsons characters. And Danny comes around to see me on the set one day, and the buzz is, oh my God, Homer Simpson is in the building. It's like Elvis, you know?
Right.
Anyway, but I haven't seen Danny or Julie in quite some time, but, you know, that's the way life goes, I guess.
Right. And yeah, you, with the Tracey Ullman Show, you had a great relationship with Dan on some skits, playing his significant other.
Yes, that was the first thing I did on that show. I'm sorry, go ahead. You were asking.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, was that the reason why they kind of casted you both in that Married with Children episode? Playing both, the same.
Yes, sort of, you know, flip-flopping the thing. So I was the seemingly straight one.
Yeah.
But the first, I think I went, I do know, I read for the Tracey Ullman Show when it was first beginning. And, you know, to quote Mel Brooks, I didn't get it. So, okay, you know, moving on. We had just moved out, my wife and I, to California. So it's early 87, late 86, right? And, you know, but I think I got the first thing I read for was a show called Easy Street with Lonnie Anderson and James Cromwell and, oh God, you know, Jack Elam, who had the one eye that was going that way.
Yeah,
that was the one that worked. The one that you thought was looking at you was glass.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But, yeah. You know, he'd been a cowboy in 150,000 movies. But so I read on that and I got it. And the next thing I read on was Hill Street Blues, which of course that was appointment TV for me.
Right, absolutely.
And I knew a couple of people. Torian Black was a friend, my friend Bruce Weitz, who just had a birthday, turned 81. And Dan Travanti I'd worked with out of New York in this TV movie with Jo Beth Williams. Here I go. Now it's all coming back.
It's all coming up.
I read for that and I got that and I thought, Jesus, this is so easy. Who knew, you know? You know. I got inundated or I got acclimated to LA shortly thereafter. But then I go, so anyway, so I'm, you know, bumbling along and I get a phone call saying, well, there's a new casting director on Tracey Ullman Show and she'd like you to come back and read again because I guess they weren't happy with some of their initial choices because they had done 4 or 5 episodes before I joined. So I go in and I read for the character of William, who was Tracey's alternate father, if you will. And Heidi Perlman was there along with Richard Sakai. And Heidi was one of the show's main writers, very talented. And Richard Sakai was Jim Brooks's hatchet man, quite honestly. Remember at one point somebody said to him, gee, who's getting all the money on this movie? And Richard said, not the actors, which was certainly
right.
But so I read on that, and I did it the way it wound up being. I made him rather flamboyant. Couldn't do that now, I guess, you know. So, no, away. That's another topic. And Heidi and Richard, Heidi said, you know, take it down a little bit. And I was like, no, I don't think so. I said, he's the one who's out there. You know, Danny is the straight seeming one. And I won him over. So I did that. The first episode I did, I wasn't a regular on it, but after I did it, then they made me a deal. And then the next, this is interesting. The next, there was a hiatus and we were down for a week or something. And then they made the deal for me in that time period.
Mm.
And the first episode I did was with this very young actor named Matt Perry, who
Right.
was 17 years old at the time. And he was just so talented. It was obvious that he was ticketed, he was
Yeah.
going places. Anyway, so but that was the one that got me in, doing Francesca, right?
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is apparently based on this 13-year-old girl that Tracy knew when they were living in Laurel Canyon.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Yeah. The thing about Tracy is like she's such a chameleon because she actually looked like she was 13 in that skit. And both the skit,
yeah,
it was great. She was so talented. And Matthew went on, he had a show on Fox, it was Second Chance or early
yes,
on.
I
Yeah.
think you're right. Yeah,
Yeah. And then I think they like did that show and changed the name or something like that. But yeah. But I think he was
and I
like,
knew his dad too, John, was very
okay.
nice, who was, still up in Ohio, I believe. I think he's semi-retired, but
Okay.
lovely guy and a really good actor.
Right.
I saw him do The Rainmaker, the play version of it. At the time, I was
Yeah.
seeing Stephanie Zimbalist, and she was the
Okay.
heroine. But John was just terrific in it. Anyway, nice man. And I loved Matty, too. He was a good guy. I
Yeah.
liked that. The whole cast was great, including the aforementioned brunette, Jennifer.
Jennifer Aniston. Yeah.
And Courtney, who I knew through a mutual friend. And I didn't know Schwimmer or Lisa, but I got to know the other Maddie very well.
Yeah.
Terrific guy.
Right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
that was
And
a lot of fun.
yeah. And the show that he ended up doing afterwards, episodes, was fantastic on
Yeah.
Showtime. That was great.
Well, when the first episode of Friends I did, Maddie was doing, was it Lost in Space that they, had been a
Yeah.
TV series? And he was commuting from England.
Oh wow.
I mean, you have to be a young man to do that. They
Yeah.
put him on a plane and he would land Thursday night and they'd give him the blocking and, he was quick and he'd know the lines and just do it. But,
Yeah.
that's you can't be over 25 and do that.
No, definitely
No.
not. Yeah. And I guess we'll stay there because I'm mentioning it now. Friends. So has anyone actually ever come up to you and just slapped you on the ass?
No,
Oh, that's good.
no, but close,
Yeah.
thankfully. Yeah.
Yeah. Is
Yeah,
that the
that was
thing?
fun.
Yeah. Is that the thing you get asked most about?
Friends?
Yeah.
Depends on who, depends
Who's
the age
yeah.
of who's,
Right.
who's asking me. For somebody of a certain age, of course, now that's, those are my kids' age, and those are people in their 30s or 40s, I only did 3 of them,
Yeah.
actually. But it's interesting how many people remember that as opposed to King of Queens, which I did almost 18, 19
Right.
episodes of that. And then people do remember things like, Raising Arizona,
Yeah.
but not, and even Stone Cold.
Right. Yeah.
You misled me the whole way. I thought you were going to say something like, Raising Arizona.
Oh yeah.
Favorite movies. Anyhow, but no one's slapped me on the ass. So the funny thing is, I'm in New York Christmas before last, and I'm with a friend in a restaurant somewhere in the East 30s or something, and Federico Castelluccio walks in.
Yeah.
And I walk up to him and I said, "There's a bee on your hat," and he goes,
Yeah.
he looks at me like shit. He goes, "Oh, hey,
Yeah.
no one slapped me in the
Just
head.
smack it over his head.
Right.
Yeah.
But and he and I became friends. Actually, Jimmy too. Oh well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. We could talk, Sopranos now too.
sure.
Which I mean, the writing on that show, I think, is second to none. It is so good. I mean,
So good.
yeah, and playing Dr. John Kennedy, and Junior just loves you. Will listen to anything you say just because of the name, and
Right.
it's so funny. But my favorite line from that show is like Tony's like, "Let me ask you about your worship of JFK." It's like, why not Hofstra and the Teamsters?
Right.
And Junior's like, that was the brother,
That was the brother.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just brilliant. What was there ever a chance of just doing anything else on that show? Or that was just clearly,
No, I don't think so.
yeah,
I remember there was there was a strike going on. So this was what, 99, 2000. It was a commercial strike.
Okay.
And I knew, and I will blank on his name, forgive me. I knew because my kids were in preschool with his kid.
Okay.
Anyway, during the strike, we were just chatting and I get a call. And this was like 99. This was a while, 20, 25 years ago. And they say, can you put yourself on tape for Sopranos? And this gent says, you can have my studio because of the strike. There was no work going on. He was, I guess, altogether casting for commercials and so on. So I went over there with my friend Saul Rubinek. Thank God I remember his name.
Right. Yeah.
So I said, would you direct and sort of read me in on this thing? He said, sure. And then the guy whose name escapes me right now, he was also there, and he, moved the furniture around. We built a little set, and I did 3 or 4 little scenes. And in those days it was a VHS, so we put the cassette, and we mailed it in and got it. And I had read for the show the season before, which I guess was year 2, for Georgianne Walken, who was casting it. Chris Walken's wife.
Right.
Oh God. To see everything I say, I become discursive. So pardon me. But I knew Chris when I was 20. He wouldn't remember me. I was just sort of, there was a theater called the John Drew Theater in East Hampton. And that year was run by Edward Albee and Richard Barr, his co-producing partner. And Chris came out and did this play, and with a wonderful actress named Beatrice Straight and an actor named Dean Santoro. Anyway, so I knew Georgianne from those because Georgianne and Chris had been in a traveling version of West Side Story.
Okay.
She was one of the jet girls, and Chris was playing Riff or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so anyway, so I put the thing down and I book it, and they flew me in. I remember it was the Mets and the Yankees, and I'm a huge Mets fan.
I'm a huge Yankee fan, so.
How can you be a Yankee? You're from Queens. How can you be
everyone asked me that. Yeah, I was smart.
You were smart?
Yeah.
Well, we'll get back to whatever we were talking about, but my dad had been a Dodger fan.
Okay.
And of course, I don't remember the Dodgers in Brooklyn. I was too young. But when they left, I remember being somewhat bereft, not to rhyme, but I remember having a little plastic statue. They would have these sort of, like, I don't know, maybe this tall, maybe they were 9 tall, the ball players. And I had one of Frank Larry, the names I can remember and the others I can't, who was known as the Yankee Killer. He pitched for the Tigers.
Okay.
Anyway, and Nellie Fox was like my favorite, the Go-Go Sox in '59. So I remember that much. I remember even watching it on television. So when the Mets were invented, I was 10. And forget it. That was,
that was it.
Done. So, and it's interesting because I think if you're a certain age, for instance, I root for, this is weird, I root for the Giants and the Jets.
Okay.
And when the Giants play the Jets, it's a tough call for me.
Yeah.
Basically, whoever's got a better shot at making the playoffs. But mostly I'm a Giant fan, and the Jets are 1A. We'll see.
I'm a Jets fan, so it's always next year.
Well, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Queens.
Yeah.
I was at Shea in '69, the year they won the Super Bowl when they beat Oakland in the AF.
The championship game.
The AFC.
AFL. Yeah.
With Joe Willie, tremendous. Freezing my ass off. That's what I remember.
Yeah.
Anyway, high school at the time. But so I'm always a Met fan, still am, even though they're currently kind of awful.
Yeah.
But no, but I couldn't root for the Yankees because, one, I come from a very progressive background.
Okay.
And I knew that the Yankees were the next to last franchise to integrate, right? So my father, of course, big Dodger fan, Jackie Robinson, Campanella, Joe Black, all those guys. So and they were, as somebody said back in the day, rooting for the Yankees is like rooting for U.S. Steel.
Exactly. Yeah.
When U.S. Steel was, the behemoth.
Yeah. Right.
So I was never a fan. In fact, when I was 7 years old and I was in preschool, I was the sports editor at the Bank Street News in the Village. And one of the classmates, a young woman, not anymore, I suppose, her father was like a VP at Time Life. And on the mimeograph, periodical that Bank Street News put out, I was the sports editor, and they picked it up for the 19th hole, which was when the readers took over, and it was in Sports Illustrated. It said,
Oh wow.
7-year-old Cub reporter Sam McMurray is not one to pull his punches.
Yeah.
And they quoted me saying, I hate the Yankees, and I hate Mickey Mantle too. And they gave me a $25 savings bond.
Nice.
Yeah. I used to have the actual Sports Illustrated. I don't any longer. So
Right.
that it goes way back for me.
Yeah.
But Sopranos, that was the series, 2000.
Yeah.
So they flew me in, and this is odd because I've only been flown in once more since then. So this is 24 years ago, right? And they go, well, you can have 2 out of 3. I don't know how they devised this. They said, we can put you up, we can fly you in. And what was the other thing? Put you up, fly you in, per diem, I guess. And I said, well, my mother was still extant and living on West 12th Street. And I said, well, I'll stay at my mom's, So they flew me in, and actually on the plane, although we didn't meet until we were at, where you pick up your luggage, baggage claim. David Chase was also on the plane, and we began to talk. Really interesting, nice man. And he was instrumental in the scene where I get smacked in the head. And I went to him and I said, I had done enough episodic television to recognize, well, this scene I'm about to do is basically the climax of the episode. So this is where I break down and I confess all my sins, and then they put me in handcuffs and like that, just because it was television and it was 45 minutes in. But Sopranos was so well written that you didn't need to do anything except follow the material. I remember we did a table read, and Mike Nichols was playing the role of the psychiatrist. It was that great scene with Edie.
Yeah.
Right. And he opted out, which I thought was interesting. Although he was terrific at the table read. We do the table read, then they grab the scripts back because God forbid, you're walking around New York City, you hug for the script, And they used a man named Sully Boyer, who was terrific in it. Pardon me, I do go far afield. But if you see the episode of Sopranos, at the end, she's in tears and she's talking to Sully, and he says, you must leave this man, he's a killer, and all this kind of stuff. And that was the first inkling, because the episode was so well written. Yeah. It also had one of my favorite things where they're having a fight in the driveway.
Oh, she throws the phone at him.
But the wrong kind of orange juice, I want some pulp.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
Yeah. So when I did that episode, it was so easy in a way because you just had to follow the material. You didn't have to, jerry rig anything and figure out, oh, I have to do this now in order to make, to basically go outside of what you were playing. And when it aired, people were so nice to me, and I thought, well, that's just the material, And quite honestly, I don't think, although, come on, the Kevin James show, written by a friend of mine named Michael Whitehorn, was terrific. But I thought I did a few episodes of Mom.
Yes.
And it was so well written that you basically didn't need to do anything. It was so well written to give a better example. I could learn it right away. I go through it once, and I'm a fairly quick study, or at least I used to. But I could do it, and then let's go, because it made sense in a real organic way to me. But Sopranos was like that as well. So it was kind of like, well, I didn't have to do anything. Right. All I had to do was know the lines and let the material lead. Anyway, so that was terrific. And, like I said, I got to know Jimmy. I knew Dominic from New York days. Dominic, who's still going.
Yeah.
As far as I know. Basically, sort of the Italian-American version of Pete Seeger,
Right, yeah.
He played the guitar, and just a sweetheart of a man. And we had the O'Neill together, which is in Connecticut. I think I'm near New London.
Okay, yeah, it's up there.
Yeah, it is up there. Anyway, but I knew Dominic because, as I said, we were in Ensemble Studio Theater. We were still members there. And I know Mike? Who I knew was, may you rest in peace, was Junior Sirico. Tony Sirico, who was a very funny man, and a genuine bad guy.
Right.
Oh, he'd been behind the walls,
Yeah.
But I always liked him. He said, "Well, I know you. I've seen you around in New York. I remember." I said, "This guy's an actor," you
Yeah.
know. And he had told me this story, which I guess he told to a number of people when he was a young kid and something of a badass. He took an acting class with guy who wrote Hat Full of Rain. Michael. Oh, come on. I should do this. I should do this later in the day. I'll remember everybody.
Right.
Godfather. He replaced Richard Castellano in Godfather.
Okay.
You can't come up with it either.
I
Right?
can't. No. I'll try
He
to.
says, "Don't cheat." She's Laporte. He says, "Michael," anyway. He does the whole thing when he kills himself in the
Oh yeah.
when he's in prison. But he was a playwright. Sorry,
It'll
Kimber's
come.
preaching home. Hat Full of Rain he wrote, and he did a play. He also wrote a play that my dad was in, kind of opened and closed on Broadway, called Night Circus. Mike Gazzo was the name I'm trying to come up with. Anyway, so Mike Gazzo was taking all these street kids, mostly I guess they were Italian and so forth, and he was trying to get them to straighten out. And so that's how Junior, or Tony, we used to call him Junior, got involved with acting. He says, "So Sam, I'm doing this scene with this girl, and it's going really good, And I'm like really into it. And I'm like, go get, but then we finish. Got a big hand from everybody. And Mike says, "Tony, come over here." He says, "This next time you go to class, leave the piece at home," because he was stressed.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. Michael Gazzo.
Yes, Mike Gazzo, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cheech Laporte. What's his face? Oh, I can't remember. Anyway, it all comes back to me, I'm sure, on my deathbed. So.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Or 2 a.m. when you're
So
sleeping.
Sopranos, it was great. Unfortunately, I never got to the game. And I'm staying at my mother's. I'm big, big TV star. I was sleeping in this, small, tiny bed. My mother had a second bedroom. This was not where I grew up, but this is my mother's. I grew up on a brownstone.
Okay.
On St. Luke's Place, which was built in the 1850s.
Wow.
And my parents had bought it before I was born for $29,000, which was a lot of money in 1952.
Right.
And that's where I grew up. But my mother sold it in the early 90s, I guess, because, it was a lot for her to handle. And she bought an apartment on West 12th Street across from the new school. And she loved that. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to hang on to that after she passed because I really wanted to, but couldn't do it.
Right.
So
I think 29,000 now is just rent for a studio apartment now.
Yeah, really, they check my papers if I walk in the old neighborhood. What are you doing? But in retrospect, it was a terrific upbringing. It's funny. I've been getting mail from my high school classmates. They're having the 55th reunion of my graduating class. I'm like, I went to the 50th. That was fine, Why do we the 55th? Well, apparently they do one every year, or they will be every 5 years or something. We should live to be 60.
Yeah.
I won't be going to this one, although I'm friends with some, still friends with some people I went to high school with. So, but they were going, "Oh, can you come?" And I'm like, I was actually in New York. I was trying to find a place there for a couple of months. And I have a friend who lives on St. Mark's Place, which is not St. Luke's Place, but 8th Street. And she was doing theater up in Rochester, and she said, "Do you want my place?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll take the place." I had actually rented from her before, but it's tiny 1 bedroom. It's really a studio, but the big drawback is that it's a 4th floor walk.
Oh yeah,
just killing me,
Yeah, I don't blame you.
But it was funny because I was in, and while I'm in, my agent calls me and he says, "You got to come back." So what for? He says, "Well, they want you for General Hospital."
Okay.
So so I fly myself back. General Hospital, there's only 3 soaps left,
Yeah.
And they're all in California. So I do my 1 day on General Hospital, and I finish, and my agent says, "You're making an old man of me," or that's, I'm quoting Lenny Bruce there.
Mm-hmm.
You know that bit?
Yeah.
Anyway, what it's the famous place. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So my agent says, "You got to fly back." So what for? So they want you to do Law and Order.
Okay.
So I have to fly myself back. Okay. But the money's really good, and I'm working. And I haven't worked in 2 years because of COVID and the strikes and so forth. But I'm a little bit rusty to say the least. So I do Law and Order. I finish that, and then I have to fly back the same day essentially to do General Hospital again.
Okay.
And by the time I landed in LA, I didn't know, I didn't know shit from Shinola. I was just like, where am I,
Right.
But I've done, I don't know, 4 episodes of General Hospital now, and it's come back, my
Okay.
memory, for instance, and that's been great.
That's
Well, I did one a week ago, a little less, no, exactly a week ago. And I think it doesn't air until like the 4th of July.
right.
So, but I'm supposed to do like 15 more or something like that. And they're really lovely on the set. Very nice.
Mm,
But it's so interesting because I hadn't done a soap since like 1980.
right.
I was on the Doctors when they discovered this young kid waiting tables. Name was Alec Baldwin.
Oh, heard of him. Yeah.
And I saw Alec when I was in New York because we had a mutual friend in common. And my friend kept saying, "Oh, Alec really wants to see you." I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
So we're in the Village having dinner at a Greek restaurant on 12th and University called Tavernas. Yeah, that I remember.
Yeah.
And Alex shows up with his wife, and he's got like 7 kids
Right.
under the age of 10.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And he's a grandfather from prior marriage,
Yeah.
Anyway, good to see him and so forth. And character.
Mm,
So New York was fun, but it was also exhausting, quite
yeah.
honestly. I go back to, I rent, come summertime, I rent a place on Fire Island.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, well, when I was a kid, I grew up there basically in the summer with my parents. They would share a house in Ocean Beach. I don't know if you know Fire Island, but and no, it's not in whatever it is. Why can't I think of the 2 gay communities?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, the Pines.
Right.
That's I didn't know. Apparently, one is more lesbianic, and the other is more gay guys.
Yeah.
But this is
Right.
Saltaire. I really like actually, and my kids come out and bring their friends, or my friends come out
Yeah.
and stay with me. So that'll be my expenditure for the summer
Oh, that's
or for
good.
the year,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. My mom's friends used to have a place out there, and she would go like a few days at the end of the summer. And she's a big General Hospital fan, so I'll tell her to look out for your
Oh,
episodes.
really?
Yeah. She's still in Queens now too. Yeah. Did you
Well,
happen
I mean, there are people. I was talking to Jeannie Francis,
Yeah.
who I didn't know, but I know her husband,
Jonathan
Jonathan Frakes.
Frakes. Yeah.
And we're talking, and I was saying, the funny thing was, I was looking at my phone at one point on the IMDb, and here's the cast list for General Hospital. Of course, it'll take up an afternoon.
Exactly.
So I'm scrolling down
Yeah.
and scrolling down and scrolling down, and I get towards like having done 6 episodes, and there's my dad.
Oh, wow.
So my father and mother were both
Yeah.
actors. My stepmother.
Okay. Yeah.
And my dad was a regular on Edge of Night when it was live.
Okay.
He was the villain. He was the heavy. As my dad, it was a wonderful quote, I thought. He said, when you're on a soap opera, either you're the heavy or you're boring, which is true.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So we start talking, Jeannie and I, and it turns out, she says, well, my dad was on Edge of Night. Her father's name was Don, I think, Don Francis.
Okay.
That's right. So I look him up, and she says, no, they were on at the same time. I said, isn't that funny? So they probably knew one another.
Right.
Anyway, because I did very first job I had, Edge of Night was still live. This is 74.
Mm.
And then later I went back and I did a longer bit in which I kidnapped Frances Fisher, who is a good friend to this day.
Yeah, she's great. Yeah.
That's one way to woo a lady, I suppose.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Totally. Yeah. Did you do any episodes with Johnny Walker
With who?
Johnny Walker on General Hospital?
Johnny Walker. Oh, he's the guy that died?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know him.
Yeah.
It's funny. I got to meet a bunch of people in the last one I did a week ago because it was a big scene. There were like 17 regulars, and they were all terrific. And then I had a nice little scene with Jane Elliott to finish my day. But the guy who plays Jane's son, really not. They're all terrifically nice. Cynthia Watras, who I've done a couple with, and come on, Sam, Cameron. I can't remember his last name. Tall and always needs a shave and so forth. But they were all just terrific. I saw that though. I didn't know him though.
Yeah. Terrible story.
What did he die from?
He got murdered. Someone was trying to steal, I think, his catalytic converter.
Right.
Yeah, and he wasn't trying to
what
stop
are you doing?
them.
And I blew him away.
Yeah, and they still haven't found the 3
Unbelievable.
suspects. It's, it's terrible.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's really
Just awful.
sad. I know.
I catalytic converter, I
Yeah,
know others. Sure. Yeah,
yeah,
that's awful.
yeah, totally.
But I did not know him. I didn't really know anybody on that show. Um, it's another world. And of course, the soaps were never on strike. They're on a different contract.
Yeah,
So, which was sort of odd, in a way, did that happen. But we've come through.
right.
So now,
Yeah.
have you lived in Portland? Is that why you're wearing the Portland
Oh
Pickles?
no, it's Portland Pickles, the minor league baseball team.
Right.
Yeah, so I just been kind of like buying all these minor league baseball shirts recently. Don't
Really?
don't ask me why, but yeah, so it's
You ever see that documentary about Kurt Russell and his father?
no.
Kurt Russell's father was a real sort of maverick, and he
Right.
became the general manager. I think the team was in Portland.
Okay.
And Kurt Russell was like 18 or 19. And everybody I've spoken to, like actual ball players,
Yeah.
big leaguers, I said, who's the best actor ball player, you ever knew? And they said,
Mm,
well, Kurt Russell.
right.
Kurt Russell made the bigs. He got hurt.
Yeah.
But in this documentary, it's about his dad, but he's in it as well because he
Okay.
played for the Portland. I think it was Portland. I can't remember. They weren't the Pickers.
Sea Dogs, maybe?
Something like that.
Yeah.
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 It's a fun documentary, though,
I'll have
because
to
this
check
is
it out.
about the
Yeah.
70s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. All right. So let's talk baseball now since you brought it up.
sure.
Was it difficult playing like a character that Tom Hanks like made and like Jimmy Dugan in the TV show? Because
No,
also he
it
directed,
wasn't.
right?
Tom
A couple
directed an
episodes.
episode
Yeah.
too, which I was playing. Me and Carrie Powell, Carrie Lowell.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that was fun. I'm sorry that didn't go further, but
Yeah.
I think what happened. Well, I shouldn't opine because I don't really know, but no, Tom was great. He came on and directed an episode,
Yeah.
as I said, and he had just. I guess he was going to do. He had done Philadelphia.
Right.
And oddly enough, well, not so oddly, when I was in New York, I did a play called Soldier Story.
Okay.
And I became friends with one of the leads, who was Denzel Washington.
Mm.
And when we first moved out to LA, I saw Denzel a lot because we lived near one another and Pauletta and so forth. But at the time, so Tom comes on to direct, and they had just done Philadelphia Story together. So that was kind of fun. And he was terrific, still is. No, it wasn't difficult for me at all, although, I gave him a hard time about it.
Right.
Because give me a note, I go, is that how you would do it? Okay. So. But
Yeah.
the story there's more to his story than that, because Penny Marshall said, so when I'm doing the thing, we hire Tom, and because I didn't know, in Big, it was originally Robert De Niro.
Okay.
And for some reason, he didn't go forward in the production.
Right.
But I guess they were rehearsing, maybe even shooting for a week or so. And then Tom came on, and every time she would give Tom a note, he would say, "Oh, is that how Bob would do it?" So
Yeah.
So I tried to carry on that tradition, but no, it wasn't intimidating at all. He was such a terrific guy. Yeah, I liked it. The only problem with the series was they began to write more and more for me, which I was flattered by, but I also realized that was an indication that we weren't catching fire. Because we didn't have Madonna. We didn't have Rosie
O'Donnell, right.
Although I did a series with Rosie, which also didn't last terribly long, and Melissa Gilbert, called Stand By Your Man, which was a show called Birds of a Feather that Tracey Ullman's husband, the late Alan McEwen, and a wonderful guy, had produced in the UK. And we did it over, this is like 1990, 91, something like that. Interestingly, over at ABC Prospect. I don't know if you know LA, but that's the studio where we do General Hospital.
Okay.
Interesting. So I remember this place. Plus, they also do the Shonda Rhimes show that's been running for a million years. I did one.
Okay. Yeah. That show. It's like what, 20th year now or something like that. It's crazy.
Something like that. Yeah.
Well,
my friend Jim Pickens is on that. And Jim was in A Soldier's Play.
Okay.
That's where I knew him from. And then my friend Rocky Carroll, he's a similar show. He's on NCIS.
Right.
But he's a newcomer. He's only been on for 16 years, and the show's been going for 19.
Right. Yeah, he was on Rock, I think, right? Rocky Carroll.
He was great.
And and he was on another like med show, what, like Presidio Med or something like that?
No, he
not
did
that one.
no, Chicago Mo.
Chicago, it was something. Yeah. There's so many of
because
those shows.
I did a two-parter on Chicago Hope, and he
Okay.
wasn't worried. He said, "Take my trailer."
Right.
Interestingly enough, it was up where we used to shoot Tracey Ullman Show.
Oh wow. Okay.
And the funny thing is, I go and I read, and it was a nice role for, as I said, it was a two-parter to be Adam Arkin's, pardon me, Adam Arkin's college roommate, and also a doctor. But I'm dying, and the premise of the episode was, come on, Sam, Bill Macy's real life wife, wonderful actress.
Felicity Huffman.
Thank you.
Yeah.
She's married to me. And the whole bit was, I say, come take my wife. Why? Because I'm dying. So, and then they actually went to Chicago and they did some exteriors there. But Rocky wasn't on, but he said, well, take my thing. So, all right. But so I read for the thing and they like it a lot, but they go, we're afraid because it's a serious episode because I die in the second episode. They go, he's maybe too funny. Really? Well, I haven't gotten that as a criticism very often, but
right.
Okay, would you come and read again? So, all right. So I go back and I'm waiting to read for the director. Oh God, Pollock, not Sydney. Oh shit. Okay. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Lou, something, but can't think of anybody's name right now. Anyway, and Mark Tinker is among others. And I'm sitting there waiting for them to show, and the guy behind the desk says, "Do you want to see the trades?" And I go, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And I look and I open it up, and the first thing that catches my eye is that Howard Rollins has died.
Oh wow!
And I knew Howard in New York. I was doing a play called "The Taking of Miss Janie."
Okay.
And he covered all the black guys. There was a guy who covered all the white guys, who also was gone. Anyway. I was so upset by that. And I had seen Howard from time to time. And Howard had been very closeted when I first knew him. But towards the end, when I got to know him, when I was with my bride-to-be, I ran into him once with this, this is my particular friend. And then I was very happy for him, Plus, we'd worked at the O'Neill together as well.
Okay.
And after he had done Ragtime, so he was launched,
Right.
Anyway, I was so upset. I just burst into tears and I go outside and up comes the director. Why can't I think of the director's name? It doesn't matter. Though he's a terrific director.
Yeah.
And then Michael Pressman did the second episode, who was a friend anyway. But they come walking up and I've just fallen apart. And they go, "Oh, take your time." Okay. So I go in and I read and I was decidedly not funny enough. But that's what sort of sealed the deal for me. They went, "Oh, okay, so he can do not funny. He can do tragic if you want." Right. And they actually submitted me for an Emmy, but I didn't get it, to quote the Mel Brooks movie. Yeah. But that was kind of fun. I did it. So I did a two-parter of that, and I became friends with Adam and so forth. Now I'm going to kill myself trying to remember this. And he'd been an actor, this guy. You wouldn't know him necessarily, but he was terrific. Anyway, but yes, Chicago Hope.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I also did an ER.
Okay.
Much later in the game, which I was very enjoyable too. I have mad crush on Maura Tierney.
Yeah, she's great. Yeah,
just great.
Yeah,
and a wonderful actress. Anyway,
Likely Suspects, and I love that show. I remember when it was on. Yeah, and it was so original. How the audience, you basically broke the fourth wall, and the audience was your rookie partner. And it was brilliant, how you just wrapped up everything like 29 minutes and 30 seconds. It was great. The thing I don't like about the Fox network back in those days is they didn't let the shows breathe.
No.
Like they were still the fourth network, so they were still like the bastard childs, so to speak.
Right.
Let these shows breathe. I mean, because there were so many shows that Fox canceled that I really liked that, pissed me off. And that they were original, and there was kind of an alternative to the big three networks. And I felt that show more than anything was that. Yeah.
Well, of course, the Tracey Ullman Show was in the first days, and they had us and they had Married with Children.
Right.
Married with Children got the numbers, the ratings.
Yeah.
And Tracey Ullman Show actually won an Emmy in our last season. But beyond that, they had a number of flops, a great flops, or, I don't know, wouldn't call them hits, but things like you mentioned Herman's Head, which ran for, but Yeah, without a doubt, Married with Children was their, their breakout hit.
Right.
But you're correct, and I mean, with Likely Suspects, that was sort of an unfortunate circumstance, and I can't now. This is a name I won't remember either. But at the time, the gent running TV moved over to theater.
Okay.
I mean, over to theatrical. Come on. Anyway, you can look it up. But so I was known at Fox because I had done, Tracey and so forth. I even had a deal with them for a bit. But this friend of mine our kids went to preschool together. This is, a man named Ron Ziskin, who passed, sadly, was a producer, and he had done American Gladiator.
Okay.
So, which made a lot of money, but he hadn't done dramatic television. But he got this script, and he was talking with, he's still around, guy who's now, is a big shot. I don't know if he's an independent producer, but at the time he was running Fox Television. And they were picking up their kids, they're 4-year-olds or whatever, and they're talking about the project. And this gentleman, whose name escaped me, says, well, what about McMurray for the lead? And Ron goes, well, he's a friend, sure. So they made me the offer. That was the way it worked.
Okay.
And they picked it up we did 13, I guess. And I thought it was a terrific idea as well. We shot it in 16 millimeter.
Okay.
It was very interesting. But with 16, of course, you don't have to worry about, you don't have like the big 35. 16 millimeter, you can, just shoot up your ass and no problem.
Yeah.
You can get around corners and all that stuff. And the guy who was our DP, whose name was Levy, anyway, it doesn't matter, from Texas. He was terrifically inventive and so forth. So, and my friend Don Scardino, who lives in New York now, who's done very well as a producer, director, and used to be an actor. I met him. We were both up for the role of Jim Boughton in Ball 4.
Oh, okay.
Which, oddly enough, they cast Jim Boughton in. But Don and I are very close. And they said, who do you want to direct this? And I said, well, you get Don Scardino or my other favorite, John Pasquin, who's been very much a rabbi to me. And they got Donnie. And so Donnie came out. We shot the pilot during the riots, in fact.
Okay.
The one day we were down by Normandy. We slowly got out of there. But it got picked up despite the fact that Ron didn't have any real credits like other guys who had been doing Beverly Hills 90210 457. And why can't I think of his name? Anyway, good guy. But he had left. So he moved over. He was in movies now, but he wasn't in television, and we didn't have a rabbi in our corner any longer, So we did the first half season, and it was very well received critically. The problem with the show was that it really wanted to be an hour long.
Okay.
You had to wrap up. You had to do the cold open with the killing, and then you had to wrap it up within 18 minutes or something. But I loved it,
Yeah.
And I, the part ham of me that just wants to talk to camera anyway.
Yeah.
But then they said, well, let's do an hour-long show, and the writers at the time were kind of at war with the executive producers, which was Ron and this guy named Shukri, who was Palestinian. That was like the big, the sale. They go, look, a Jew and a Palestinian working together. But Shukri is a crook, and he was paying for his mother's apartment, and just embezzling.
Yeah.
But he was the reason, I think, that there was such an acrimonious relationship. So the writers basically said, well, screw you. There were 4 guys who were staff, and they got all 4 names on the hour-long version of it, which meant they're all getting paid up the yin-yang.
Right.
And I got paid too, but they never did it. But the show was dead. And I remember at one point, and I'm telling tales out of school, but that's what I do. I'm talking to Ron. I was playing golf, and I'm driving back, and Ron was really a lovely guy. Had other issues, which I didn't know about till later, but we're on the phone, and he says, again, I can't remember the guy's name at Fox, who said basically, you have to step on the writer's neck, then do it, or words to that effect. And I said, yeah, do it.
Right.
You have to be a hard on here. You got to be a tough guy, and he couldn't do it. That's not the way he was built. So unfortunately, the show didn't go on. And then we won 2 Edgar Awards, which never happened in the first year of a show. Those were for the mystery writers thing.
Right.
But no, I would have done that until I dropped. That was my favorite, without a doubt.
Yeah, I had Rebecca Staub on a couple
Love it.
last year since she was the first, I guess, murder victim, and
That's correct.
yeah, she
Yeah,
was great. Yeah,
she was. And we did something. And then I remember she came in and read when we were doing the pilots. They already liked her, and she came in, and they were like, because I had a say in terms of casting, and I said, "Don't be ridiculous. Come on."
yeah,
You know, no, she was terrific. I haven't seen her. How's she look these days?
as amazing as ever.
Really? Yeah, she was a hottie without a
Yeah,
doubt.
yeah. I think she's on
Um,
like this. She does like guest starring, I think, on the Superman and Lois show now. I think
oh,
she's
really?
on there. Yeah, so
Yeah,
good for her. Yeah,
was a good actress. Yeah. No, we had terrific people on the show. God, next time we get together, I'll have my crib sheet, so I'll tell you
yeah,
all the people.
yeah,
We'll get started on the thing because we always had great people, and
yeah.
and the casting people. Well, I'll tell you one because I have a copy of this episode, and there aren't many.
Right.
We did this one episode, and Steve Root is the killer in it. He
Oh
kills
wow.
Richard Belzer,
Oh wow.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
And in the cold open, and then Steven, that was one of his first jobs in L.A., and we were very good friends
Yeah.
because of that. And also, God, she was on Hot in Cleveland. Blanking. I'll be much sharper later. Brunette, thin, very attractive.
Was it Valerie Bertinelli?
No,
No.
no, no. This is very.
Wendy Malick.
Thank you,
Okay. Yeah.
Wendy Malick, who's very close to my good friend Dan Lauria. Anyway, but
Okay.
I haven't seen Wendy in a while.
Right.
But she's a judge on that. Anyway, Steve was great on it,
Yeah.
and he was so sneaky as the bad guy. He was
Yeah.
really terrific. So he and we get together frequently.
Yeah. No, he's amazing.
So yeah, no, we had those kind of people, and I didn't know Steve Root from Adam, but the casting people, they came up with some absolute winners. My friend Chris Rich did one of them as well.
Okay.
And I see Chris very often.
Yeah.
He also lives nearby. Excuse me. Anyway, yeah, but that was a show that deserved a better fate. But I've been in a number of series like Freaks and Geeks deserved
Another
a better
great show.
fate.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, that was fantastic too.
Yeah. Well, what's his face? God, I'm just not very smart this morning. The executive producer, Judd Apatow.
Judd Apatow, yeah.
Comes to me and says, "Well, you know what we're going to do if the show gets picked up? We're going to pick up your relationship post divorce."
Okay.
Because I get caught,
Yeah.
philandering.
Right. Right.
What was her name? It doesn't matter. And that would have been fun because it really had never been done. And Sammy is a friend of mine who's still, still a friend. Played my son on it and so forth. And all the others are, they're
Big
all
stars
very
now. Yeah.
millionaires. No,
Yeah,
maybe
totally.
not. I mean, Cardellini's, she's the best.
Oh, she's great. Yeah, and anything she does. Yeah.
And a sweetheart, But they were all, very nice, and Franco, and but I knew the younger group, Martin Starr and so forth.
Yeah.
And John Davis has become a very successful screenwriter.
Right.
Martin Starr quite well too.
Yeah, no, he's really good too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
And Sammy Levine, who just got, that's why he had to add the M. Because there was another older Sam Levine who was in the original production of Guys and Dolls, played Nathan Detroit.
Okay.
It's spelled the same way, but so Sam had to add an M.
The middle initial.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Sam MM.
Right.
So,
Totally.
anyway.
Yeah. But Sam, we will continue this conversation real soon. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
I have like so much more stuff I want to talk to you about, but thank you so much.
Happily.
And a special thanks to Sam for joining me today. Part 2 should come out in a couple of weeks, and we'll focus on Raising Arizona, of course. We'll talk about dinosaurs. We'll talk about some of his other work. And if you have a guest suggestion, you can hit me up on Twitter, now X, at @TheFirstNoel19, or like the page Relive My Youth on Facebook. You can go to iTunes, check out all the past episodes we've had. While you're there, please rate and review the show. Don't have iTunes? Not a problem. Shows on SoundCloud, Spotify, Podbean, Amazon Music, Basely, wherever you can find a podcast. A new episode comes every week. Stay safe, everybody. We'll see you then. And welcome to Reliving My Youth. My name is Noel Fogelman. My guest this week is actor Sam McMurray. If you don't know his name, you definitely know his face, and you definitely know his work. In fact, you waste about 10% of your phone battery just scrolling down his IMDb page. He starred in The Tracey Ullman Show. You might know him as Chandler's boss, Doug, from Friends for a few episodes. Amazing guest starring roles in The Sopranos, Breaking Bad. In fact, he was the first guest star in The Simpsons. Talk about some of his other roles. We had to break this into two parts because there's so much to talk about with Sam, so we didn't get to everything in this part. We did get to one of the greatest movies of all time, which that was the first question I pitched to Sam, which I'm not going to spoil. It's right here. Amazing work, like I said. We talk about his role as Jimmy Dugan, taking over for Tom Hanks in the League of Their Own TV show. In fact, Tom Hanks actually directed an episode of the show. Talk about that. We also talk about the starring role he had in the short-lived Fox TV series, Likely Suspects. It's a shame it got canceled. It was a very innovative show, which the audience was Sam's partner. So he broke the fourth wall talking to the camera, and we were Sam's rookie partner. Very creative show. Wish it would have lasted longer. I hope you enjoy this part one with Sam as much as I did.